Presidential debate number 2 takes place tomorrow night. But when it comes to voters, their number one concern is not unemployment, not the housing market, but rising prices, according to a new Fox News poll. Yep, that's right. Inflation is their top concern. Also the top concern of our guest, Peter Schiff, Euro Pacific Capital CEO and Chief Global Strategist, here to tell us why you should be worried. Peter, I say it is all about gas prices because there is no inflation other than that.
Well, look, if you see the big difference between women and men, 44% of women identified rising prices as opposed to 38% men. It's not gas prices. It's also food prices. In fact, I think it's interesting that twice as many people are worried about the inflation tax as all other federal taxes combined. In fact, you have more people worried about inflation than unemployment and housing combined. And, you know, Ben Bernanke, when he last gave his testimony, he specifically singled out the supermarket. He said there's no inflation there. Of course there is. If there was no inflation, people wouldn't be so worried about rising prices.
I look at the CPI. Year over year, the Consumer Price Index was up 1.7%. It might be a little bit faster than it was in recent months, but because I'm my chart of inflation, 5 double-digit inflation, north of 10%, 79 to 81 double-digit inflation. Are these people who really don't know what inflation is?
No, well, the real thing, Dagen, is we've changed the way we measure it. That's what's happened. We have inflation. Do you think if inflation was really as low as the CPI suggests, that 41% of the people in that poll would have identified rising prices as their top concern? The point is we're wrong. It really is. I think this poll is a lot more accurate as far as what's happening to prices than the government's indexes.
Now, we do need to worry about individuals concerned about inflation because they can actually create it, assuming that they're getting wage growth, but there has been virtually no wage increases, no wage growth in recent years. So basically, these companies can't pass on price increases to individuals.
It's not individuals that create inflation. It's the federal government. It's the Federal Reserve. It's quantitative easing that is inflation. But, you know, what makes this inflation so much worse than the inflation in the 70s is at least back then, the price of labor, wages, were also rising. Now, the price of labor is not rising. In fact, it's falling. But the price of everything else is going up. So it's even worse. And the scary part is the Federal Reserve doesn't think inflation is high enough yet. It wants to create more inflation because it thinks it's going to grow the economy and create jobs and help the housing market. All it's going to do is make the economy worse because it's going to destroy even more purchasing power.
Well, how do you think this shows up in the election, though, Peter? Because they're not voting for Ben Bernanke.
Well, I know, but the thing is, no one is even talking about it. Look at the presidential and the vice presidential debates. None of the candidates was even asked about inflation. Everybody wants to pretend it doesn't exist because that's the only way we can justify 0% interest rates. If we admit the obvious that inflation is a problem, then we have to raise interest rates, and now we've got a whole new problem. So instead, the government lies about inflation because they can't admit the truth, but the voters know the truth because they actually have to pay the prices that the government claims aren't even going up.
Good to see you, Peter. As always, fired up about inflation. We like it. Peter Schiff, you be well. Take care.